Hi everyone, on this video from Count Backwards from 10, we're going to take a look at the CVP tracing. There's a lot of great YouTube videos out there, so now I'm going to take my shot at it for us in anesthesia. So I think the most important thing to remember, as I'm always going to hark back to, is the basic sciences, and in this case we're going to need to understand that pressure is equal to force over area. This means that pressures are going to go up if the area goes down, or if your acceleration or if your mass goes up. Now, the other thing to remember about this is that the CVP tracing, although it stands for central venous pressure tracing, is also really a pressure tracing of the right atrium. And we should remember that there are no valves between the IVC, the SVC, and the right atrium. So it's one continuous area, which is why even though it's called a central venous tracing, it's also the right atrial pressure tracing. It's the same conceptually as looking at a wedge pressure and looking at the left atrial pressure, because again, it's a continuous area with no valves between them. So we're going to start off with our A wave, and the A wave is going to be atrial contraction. And a lot of people just like to remember, if nothing else, that A for atrial contraction, and that's how they remember it, A and A. But you're getting a large increase in pressure compared to the rest of the wave here, because as your area decreases and the atria contracts, it's forcing blood into the right ventricle. So between an increase in the acceleration of the fluid out of it, as well as a decrease in the area due to contraction, you're going to have high pressures in the right atrium. Now we should note that anytime a patient has a stiff right atrium, you're going to have a larger spike in your pressure. Why is that? Because less compliant things are unable to tolerate changes in volume. So small changes in volume have major changes in pressure. Next is our C wave, and our C wave is representative of isovolumetric contraction. Isovolumetric contraction of the right ventricle. And so this is when your ventricle is contracting and your tricuspid valve is starting to bow backwards over here into the right atrium, thus decreasing the area, leading to a slight increase in pressure. Again, that's why understanding that pressure equals force over area. As the tricuspid valve bows backwards into the right atrium, the area goes down and the pressure goes up again. Next, we have our X descent. And this is representative here of two things. This is relaxation of the right atrium, as well as emptying of blood from the right ventricle. And what this allows the tricuspid valve to do, and again I'm just going to kind of erase this little part here, is that it allows the right ventricular, the tricuspid valve to relax back down into the right ventricle and even get almost vacuumed a little bit, because there is no more volume inside the right ventricle. And this leads to an increase in area, like we had mentioned before, and the increase in area then leads to a drop in pressure. Next, we have our V wave, and this is when the pressure begins to go up in the right atrium again, and this is because increase right atrial pressure, because during diastole, which is where we are now, blood begins to fill right atrium. And then finally we have our Y descent, and this is where the mitral valve, I apologize, not the mitral, the tricuspid valve opens and blood by gravity falls into the right ventricle. And so the pressure in the right atrium drops. And then you come back up again to your A wave, your pressure spikes again when your atria kicks and contracts. So that's our brief introduction to our CVP tracing. The continuation videos of these will be looking at pathologies that occur and how they affect our CVP tracing. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to write in, or topics you'd like covered. Otherwise, check in for the next video.